All right. Sorry, I have to break these up into 15-minute bits, but that's the way the Screencast-O-Matic works. But let's get right back into it then. So Jackson is going to win the election, despite all this mudslinging that goes on, and despite all the character attacks that John Quincy Adams throws his way. He's still going to win. The South and the West are going to be big supporters of Jackson. The South and the West are not going to be big supporters of John Quincy Adams, so he's going to go ahead and win, and limiting John Quincy Adams to one term. So the very first thing Jackson is going to do when he enters office is going to be controversial. Right away, he's going to introduce the spoils system. So we're talking about the executive branch here, right? The bureaucracy. And what Jackson is going to do is basically he is going to fire everyone in the bureaucracy and then open those jobs up to anyone who will maybe bribe him for them, pay him for them. Maybe they were just people who made good campaign contributions. But these are going to be essentially jobs that are for sale. Maybe you were loyal to him, or maybe you just gave him a big enough hunk of cash to his campaign. Either way, he basically comes up with the spoils system. To the victor goes the spoils, and the spoils in this sense are jobs within the executive branch. And this is not based on merit whatsoever. There's no merit in this at all. This is completely a basically who can help me the most sort of thing. So you have people who can read and write, who can't read and write, who can't read or write, working in the bureaucracy. You have people who are going to steal money in the bureaucracy. So incompetent people, thieves, crooks. So Jackson is going to introduce this sort of system right away. And this is important in building the two-party system because it's going to help reward those who are loyal to the party. And we have a little bit of this today, right? When you get those people who contribute a lot of money, maybe you end up having some policy meetings with the president or something like that. So it's not quite quid pro quo as it was before, and obviously merit and competence is going to play a big role in today's staffing of the bureaucracy. But you can also fire the bureaucracy nowadays like Jackson did back then. But there are sort of some elements to the spoil system. Who becomes your press secretary? Who becomes your chief of staff? Who becomes your communications director, right? So that does sort of play into the modern day system. And this helps sort of, like I said, helps build this two-party system because you're going to reward people who are loyal to the party. People are going to want to be part of that party so they can get jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to be one of the lasting legacies of Jackson. Whether it's good or bad, I think it's obviously this is bad at the time, but maybe the long-term ramifications is that we end up getting the Democrats and the Republicans. And as I alluded to earlier, Jackson is basically going to be the father of the modern Democratic Party, donkey and all. So we'll get into that more in a little bit, but the spoil system is an important part of our modern political system. Okay, so let's get in then to this tariff of abominations and the nullification crisis. As I mentioned before at the first part of our lecture today, the nullification crisis is, I would almost describe it as a false start to the Civil War about 30 years earlier. So let's get to the root of the nullification crisis and what it's all about. So we have this tariff of abominations. Basically what happens is that we have a tariff that is actually put into place before Jackson gets into the presidency. But a tariff, remember, that's a tax on imports on a specific type of cloth. And it's a specific type of cloth that is used mostly by Southerners to clothe their slaves. And they're going to put a pretty high tariff on it, which of course is going to raise the price, and it's going to mean that the South has to pay more for this cloth that they use to clothe their slaves. So the Middle and New England states are going to support this. It's protective. It's going to help their industry. It's going to be seen as a key to their prosperity. So the Middle states and New England, they're all about the tariff because they see it as protecting their trade. The South, on the other hand, is going to oppose the tariffs. They didn't have any industry, as we talked about before, with with the embargo of 1807, they don't have any industry to protect. They're an agrarian society. They're farmers. They're plantation owners and slaveholders. So they're not going to have too much industry that they need to protect. So the tariff is not going to do them any good, and they're going to have to pay higher prices on this cloth that they're trying to buy. So the South is not all about this at all. So look at this slide right here. Like I said, this is going to be some foreshadowing to the Civil War. We have Middle and New England, so we have the northern states on one side and we have the southern states on the other. And what is at the sort of heart of this is not actually this tariff. What is the heart of this sort of tariff of abomination has more to do with slavery than meets the eye. Because here's the deal, guys. If the New England states and the middle colonies can pass legislation like this tariff that is so destructive towards the South and their economy, what's stopping them from passing similar types of legislation? Like, let's say, outlawing slavery. So while this issue isn't actually about slavery, it's about this tariff, the elephant in the room, the reason why the South is so ticked off by this, is why they're so afraid by this too, frightened by this, is because if the North or if the Middle and the New England can band together to pass a tariff like this, they might also be able to band together to get rid of slavery. So again, this is a false start to the Civil War, and even though it seems like this is something that's dealing more with the economy, more with this tariff, more with the tax, it actually, the underlying fear here is that the middle colonies and New England colonies could gang up against the South's interest again, like they have here, and outlaw slavery. So like I said, this bill, this tariff, is actually passed before Jackson gets into office. And the South is going to see it as strengthening the federal government while weakening their state powers. And again, here's that connection to slavery, that if they can pass a higher tariff, what would be stopping them from restricting slavery? So this is going to, like I said, end up as a precursor to the Civil War. And it's even to a lot of similarities actually. During the Civil War, as we'll talk about here soon, the first state to secede is going to be South Carolina in December of 1860. And lo and behold here, who is going to be the main state causing trouble? Well, none other than South Carolina. So South Carolina then comes up with this notion, and we've talked about nullification before. Remember, with the original embargo of 1807, that Madison and Jefferson wrote those Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, that basically advocated for nullification. So Jefferson and Madison are sort of laying the foundation here, and that's a foundation that John C. Calhoun is going to pick up on. Now, John C. Calhoun is not a very good man. He's Jackson's vice president. He's from the South, and essentially he is going to antagonize the South to be even more upset about this tariff. He's going to write the South Carolina Exposition, which will argue that this tariff was unconstitutional and that the southern states should nullify the tariff. Now, this, of course, is a terrible argument because as any 10th grade government student or AP students, as you guys were last year, would know that there is one bit to the Constitution that says that states cannot override federal law, the Supremacy Clause. This is a clause that was upheld under McCulloch versus Maryland in the National Bank issue. So John C. Calhoun is making a pretty dumb argument here. In fact, it's just asinine, this argument that he's trying to make here, that states can nullify this tariff or nullify a federal law. It's not actually based on anything except for his desire to get rid of the tariff. And of course, this is going to raise tensions, because as John C. Calhoun is trying to push South Carolina to nullify this tax, it's going to sort of become a national crisis. And you can see here in a couple of years, there's going to be another tariff that is going to lower the rate. But I like to sort of equate South Carolina here to Veruca Salt. North Carolina wants it all, and they want it now. They want the tariff to getting rid of, and they want it gotten rid of right away. So the fact that they're going to lower the tariff is not going to pacify them or John C. Calhoun whatsoever. And just a quick note, and I actually put this on my slide slides for my normal US, but Google John C. Calhoun and Sam the Eagle, the Muppet, like one of the two grumpy old guys that stands up and makes fun of everybody, because Sam the Eagle of the Muppets is actually modeled after John C. Calhoun. So if you guys want to real fast, take your phones out and Google John C. Calhoun and Sam the Eagle from the Muppets. It's pretty entertaining. All right, so the state election of 1832, continuing on with the nullification crisis. South Carolina wins enough votes and in this election, and they actually vote to nullify the federal statute, the federal tariff. So the state legislature calls a special convention, they declare it null and void in South Carolina, and we're off to the races now. We have a full-blown crisis on our hands because South Carolina not only is going to nullify this, basically South Carolina is going to say, hey, Jackson, hey, U.S., if you want to come in here and try to force us to pay this tax by essentially bringing in troops, then we're going to secede. We're going to straight secede from the nation. And, well, if you know Jackson very well at all, you're going to know that this isn't a good way to deal with Andrew Jackson. You threaten Andrew Jackson, and, well, Andrew Jackson's going to march the army in. So that's basically what Jackson does. He reacts strongly against the state. He basically threatens to have these people hanged. He sends in the military basically to occupy South Carolina. So we're very close here to full-blown civil war. Sorry about the dogs, guys. All right, sorry about the dogs there, guys. So essentially what happens here is that Jackson is going to start antagonizing here. And like I say, we're very close to the Civil War. This is almost like Fort Sumter when essentially, and that's the beginning battle of the Civil War, when the Union is going to send in troops to fortify a fort there. So we are very, very close to having Civil War right here in 1832 with Jackson and this nullification crisis because South Carolina nullifies the federal law, which is pretty significant. They're saying, hey, we don't want to be a part of the Union here. Really, we're going to nullify these federal laws. As we just talked about, the Supremacy Clause basically says they're not allowed to do this. So they're basically giving the bird to the Constitution in this whole deal as well. So you can sort of see how this is trending towards, South Carolina seceding from the nation. And once they do so, maybe they'll find some supporters in the fellow southern states. So this is a full-blown crisis here that will eventually be settled by Henry Clay. So Henry Clay comes up with this compromise. Remember Henry Clay, we've seen him before, former Speaker of the House, former Secretary of State under John Quincy Adams. He's now a senator from Kentucky. So Clay has had his fingerprints all over this period as well. And remember, he is Andrew Jackson's arch rival. So he comes in, he's now a senator, and he's trying to undermine Jackson a little bit. He wants to be the guy who comes in and saves the day. And he actually is the guy who saves the day here. So he proposes a compromise. They would reduce the tariff slowly over 10 years. So that's a good compromise. That's sort of what the South wanted. Now, they lowered it once already, and we're going to continue to lower it over a span of 10 years. You're not going to get what you want right away, Veruca, but you will get what you want eventually. But this compromise is passed in conjunction with the force bill. So the compromise that Clay is going to pass is basically the carrot, right? It's sort of the sweet thing that they're going to give to South Carolina to cooperate. The force bill is the stick, and the stick is going to be Jackson. Because essentially what Clay does is he lowers the tariff, but at the same time he passes the force bill, which authorizes Jackson to use the army to collect federal tariffs, to collect those federal duties. That's like giving a loaded gun, cocking the hammer, and putting it right in Jackson's hand. And as we've seen before, Jackson's a violent man. He's not afraid to use those means. So you're basically saying, hey, South Carolina, you better watch it. You better do what we want you to, or else, we're going to send Jackson after you. So this force bill is sort of the stick. It's seen as reasserting federal government's power over the state. We just had a state nullify a law, so we're going to have to see the federal government reassert itself. But we're also sort of giving Jackson a little bit of this power to do this because Jackson might not be very good at diplomacy, not like Clay had here with this compromise, but he's very good at ramming the army down people's throats. So The force bill is associated with this compromise of Henry Clay, and this is essentially the end of the nullification crisis. We have put off the Civil War. It's 1832 now, so it'll be about 30 more years before we get there, but the Civil War is not going to happen. Henry Clay is seen as a hero. He's seen as sort of the savior of the nation, and nullification is avoided. So this is a very, very big sort of element to Jackson's presidency. And as you can see, it spans through his entire presidency up until 32, when he was reelected in 32 for his second term. So this is going to be one of those major aspects of his legacy.